welcome back to the Celebration Church podcast. Today we are doing a interview podcast, testimonial style, with one of our staff members, Kade Hinojosa. Woo woo. Say what's up, Kade.
What's up, Kade?
Good one. And today we're going to be talking about what brought you to church here and what kept you at church here and how you got involved. So we'll start with the very beginning. Were you invited? Did you see an ad? How did you know about Celebration Church?
So I kind of heard of it just a little bit, kind of like, I guess, word of mouth. And then I had driven by it a lot, especially when I was working out at Planet Fitness right behind the church right here. But what really got me was I was working at a dry cleaner's at the time, and our dry cleaner actually came. And she was talking about just how much she loved it and everything, and just how much she enjoyed coming. And the first thing I kind of saw of it was, I don't know if it was one, she had one of the little like celebration coffee cups, like the little the ones y'all handed out. Yeah. And then I saw a little paper plane, little symbol that had the celebration logo on it. And that's kind of what I kept seeing at first. And so she was like, you should really come. And I thought about it for a little bit, and she kept inviting me, and I was like, finally, you know what, why not? And so one Sunday I came, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, when I came there was still only one service,
probably.
And so it wasn't too long after that it went to two services, but there was only the one service. And so I don't know why I'm out of breath.
You can breathe, it's okay.
But yeah, and then so after that, I came, I enjoyed it, and I really loved it, and I just kept coming back every week. And then probably about a month after I was coming, my mom decided to come with me, and then after that, I was just kind of bought in, and then I started going to young adults, started going to that every Thursday. And then after that, I started really feeling like I wanted to do more instead of just coming. And so I started greeting, and I'd stand either at the front door or mostly in the little middle foyer, right in front of the sign, and just kind of stand there and just kind of say hi as people walk by.
Yeah, awesome. Let's jump back to before you came to the church. Did you grow up in church? Like, had you had already like a wide knowledge of church culture?
So I didn't really grow up in church. I grew up believing in Jesus and everything, but I didn't really, dive into it until I came here. So I really didn't have like a feel for like church culture,
like what church was supposed to be or anything. Or like have any like church hurt.
Yeah.
Bring along with you. How old were you when you started coming? Like 21, 22?
I think 21.
21?
Yeah.
So then when you came that first time, like what were you expecting? Like, do you remember kind of what you were expecting? Like, and then what you experienced when you came? Like, were you expecting younger people, older people? Were you expecting like hymns? Were you expecting current songs? Like, kind of what was your idea of what might happen?
So I remember like when, our dry cleaner was telling me like, oh, I should come and everything. I did my research before,
okay,
and
good.
I went and did the little geotag on Instagram to kind of see like what it was about, like who was tagging it and everything. And I did see that it was a bunch of like younger people, and so I was like, okay, this might be cool. And so I did come expecting to find people more my age, and it's what I did. I found as for like the music and the preaching and everything, like I said, I didn't I obviously I didn't, like I said, didn't grow up in church, and so I didn't know what to expect preaching wise. Everything I had experienced, like, which was usually at like a funeral or something, was boring. And
Amazing
so
Grace.
I didn't really know what to expect, and honestly, like, only like Christian music that I had known was either old hymns or anything that like any I grew up listening to country music a lot, and so anything like they would sing, and so I didn't know what to experience, and so that was weird, but in a good way. When I first experienced the worship music, and just how cool it was.
How quickly from when you first started coming did you feel like this was like a home for you, where you were like, this is comfortable for me? Was it a couple weeks, couple months?
Probably within the first month.
Within the first month.
And especially, like I said, once I really started going to young adults, and I was making it more than just a Sunday morning, and I was coming on a Thursday evening as well. And so it was 2 nights a week for me.
Yeah. And back then, young adults isn't like what it was today.
No.
It was much more like a small group where we did like question and answer.
Oh, yeah.
I remember, did like introduce yourself.
Yeah. The first time I went, it was like, what's your name? What's your favorite movie?
Yeah.
And so like, and still like couches and everything. There were still like chicken nuggets. Right to the chicken nuggets. But
yeah. Which just goes to show like, even when it was a small group, like being plugged into a small group is what like really helped you like feel at home. And I think that people don't understand often that you can come here on a Sunday for 10 years and never truly get to know like people in a real genuine way until you like join a small group or you start serving. Sure. And that's how you meet people, because what are you going to do when you're standing at the door with someone greeting other than be like, when no one's there and you're like, so like, what do you do for a living? You know, or like, hey, like, are you in school? And you kind of make these conversations that you wouldn't if you were just attending church alongside other people. That's really cool. I think that is a good like testimony to what like being truly involved can help you like to do. And now I want to talk about kind of like the preaching style here. Like, is that kind of what you were expecting? Had you experienced anything online? Like, I know in the time when you started coming, like Instagram preachers were becoming more and more of a thing. So I didn't know if you were expecting something different or if the style that you had found here was something that you really enjoyed.
I honestly did not know what to expect. Actually, at the time when I was looking on Instagram and everything, like I had never seen any like Instagram preacher or anything. But when I was looking like to do my like research for when I was going to come, I saw a lot of Pastor Keenan. And so I was expecting like him to be like the guy that was going to be preaching. And I was
like the main pastor.
Yeah, and I was like, this dude is young. Like he's a pastor. And so, which he was, but he wasn't the lead pastor. And when I came, and like I said, any kind of like preaching that I had seen before was boring. Yeah. Like I would fall. I'm not ashamed to admit I've fallen asleep in a funeral before.
We've all been there.
All been there.
Maybe not a funeral, but I've fallen asleep listening to preachings.
But no, it was the first time that I came, and I can't tell you what the sermon was about, but I can tell you that I just loved how Pastor Brandon just preached it, and how he, the one thing that I loved the most was his storytelling, and how he took some random story
and that he flips it on
and
you.
Just flips it, and you're like, holy, like how did that just like transform into like this whole sermon, and just like share like how it relates to the Bible and everything. And so that was to me what really
I love that about him. He'll take a story about his grandpa falling in a sewer tank, and he'll turn it into a whole sermon. And you're like, if you're not really thinking about it, you're just along for the ride. You're like listening to the sermon and stuff, and you're in this story with him. And then if you come out of it for a second, you're like, wait, his grandpa's just like in a sewer tank? Like, what is happening? And then he's like, all you need is a toe hold. Yeah. Oh, man. Like, that is
funny.
good.
It's funny, too, because like there's been a few stories that he's told a few times. And each time it's something different.
Yeah, and he'll bring a different perspective on it.
And it's like, how do you even take this story, this random story, and bring like so many truths out of it? And so that's what I really loved the most, was just how he not only told a story, but also made it relatable to not only biblically, but also to like what you're dealing with in that moment. Yeah. And so.
Yeah. And that's just the Holy Spirit working through him, you know?
Amen.
Absolutely. It's so cool to see. Do you remember what series we were in when you came?
I believe it was Refreshing.
Okay.
It's the one with the girl in the field.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She's
I think
like running through the harvest.
yeah, it was it was late January, so I think there was only like
It was like a New Year's series kind of thing.
and so
That
I think
makes
it was
sense.
only like 2 weeks left. I didn't get the full series. I've since gone back and listened to the full series.
I was gonna say, I think that you've gone back and listened to like those old messages again, which is really cool. And that's one thing we really love about having like specific series that like stick with people is that they'll remember. Like Pastor Mauricio remembers like when he first came, and there's a lot of people who can go to like the wall of series titles and they can just like, oh yeah, this is when
that's
I came.
one of my favorite parts of just the whole building is the series wall.
Yeah,
it's because and just loving like watching people be like, oh, this is where I started right here, and so
because you might not remember the year, you might not remember how old you were, but you remember that first graphic that you saw, and the first things that like you remember. Oh, I remember that sermon, which is really cool because you might not even remember what the sermon was about. I don't remember hardly what any sermons are about except for Love Bucket.
Love Bucket.
Because that one gets preached around our office all the time. Much. We are constantly being reminded of the Love Bucket.
I'm surprised we don't have the Love Bucket just propped up somewhere.
I know. It needs like a pedestal. Yeah. The Love Bucket.
It just needs to be sitting by the Connection Center. Just
I know.
Boom.
Yeah. If you're listening to this podcast and you haven't heard about the Love Bucket, you need to go check out Love Bucket series. Because it'll wreck you.
It'll wreck you. It'll change your life.
It is so
good. And will
good.
stick with you.
I know. And you're going to hate it.
What was that in like 2019?
Yeah, it was forever ago.
It wasn't too far after I started like coming.
Yeah.
So
and he takes that bucket with him. Like he goes and preaches chapels and stuff, and he'll take that bucket that he carved that one little spot out. It's so good. It's one of my favorite series because it's such a good reminder, and I hated it so much. Not like actually, I hate this.
It's one of those hates because it calls you out.
Yeah, because it's like, how am I supposed to do this? Yeah. This is so intense.
Those are the best ones though. Is the ones that really call you out and make you have to like, oh dang it. Yeah,
like this last series that we had just gone through, contrary to popular opinion, it was so good, and it was just like, what is he gonna do with this? Like he's gonna preach Daniel this whole entire series, and like he did. Yeah, and like you could read through the book of Daniel in like 1 hour probably. Yeah. You could read through it so fast, and he really just broke it down and like spoke it. It was so good.
It was really good.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite things is like having the series different things and like they really stick with people. And so that's cool that you remember yours. As far as like being part of the dream team and like being on different teams, I know you've been part of like almost every team. Like you've been a greeter. You've been on youth team for almost the whole time that you've been at the church. You've been serving the youth, and then you've been on the young adults team for years, pretty much the whole time that we had leadership since you had been coming, and then within the last few years, you've been taking up and running the tech team and like learning all of that and really stepping up when you were needed. So I want to just ask like maybe on like each of those different perspectives, and we can cover the first one that you jumped into, which was the greeting team, and kind of like maybe what you were expecting by jumping into serving and what you were met with, and just kind of how that impacted and maybe kind of domino into all of the other teams. Because I think that's usually how it happens is you join one and then you join another and you join another.
I think for me, I remember, like I said, it was right after, it wasn't not too long after I had joined. I just started going to young adults, and I was just like, I don't want this just to be I show up on a Sunday or I show up on a Thursday and just attend. I want to actually like help out and just do something. And so I was like, it was either greeting or serve donuts. And I was like, I feel like greeting might be fun. Yeah. And it might be, at the time I was not as out of my comfort, like out of my shell as much as I am now. And so I felt like, okay, this might be fun and it might push me a little bit. And so having to actually like talk to people. And so there was, especially at the beginning, it was so weird just having like, I would just sit there and just awkwardly, especially when I would stand at the middle foyer just greeting and just sit there and just be like, hi, good morning, as people walk by. But I do think that just that little space right there did help me a lot get out of my shell and be able to, it was really like getting me ready to like step into like the next places I would be serving and everything, just getting me out of my shell, getting me comfortable around other people. And so I think that for me is why I love that I started there, was it just helped me get out of my shell.
Yeah, that's really great because one, it's the impact of you only have to talk to this person to say hi.
Yes.
You know, it's like, it's not like you have to show them around the building.
Yes.
So on like a personal aspect of being the volunteer, it's like you get a redo every single time they come in. But then on the perspective of somebody who's attending, like being greeted and being told hi is a huge deal.
Yes.
I know when our family was driving around and we were attending all of these churches and stuff before we had planted this church, there were a few churches where we had walked in and like nobody said anything at all. And specifically my mom would be like, okay, like do you even care that we're here? Like nobody's even at the door to say hi to us, which it's then not like, oh, well, we can't get anything from this. Obviously we still learn things from the church, but it makes you feel way more at home when somebody is standing there to be like, hey, good morning. Like, how are you? And whether or not they want to be greeted, you can usually tell because they'll just be like, or they'll be like, oh, hey, Kate. And they'll learn who you are like really fast. But it makes a huge difference for people like coming in. And so then like from both perspectives, like that is such a huge like pivotal role. But also it's a good, like you said, like to get you out of your shell because like having to go and work in youth and like be a youth small group leader would not have been as easy for you if you have never even gotten used to saying hi to people.
Yes.
Because like kids can be intimidating.
The kids are very intimidating, especially middle schoolers.
Yeah. They're scary
Middle
sometimes.
schoolers are scary.
I know. Working in the youth team brings you into a whole nother level of like awareness. And I think that was the second team that you had joined, right? Was the youth leadership team. And so
I think
you
it was
had
a few months later, like down towards the end of it. Like I said, I started coming in January. I think I joined the greeting team in like March. And then I think like October was when I joined youth.
Like towards the end of that year. And so were we doing youth small groups at that time? Did you jump in just kind of like as part of people chaperoning?
Basically, it was more chaperoning. We weren't really doing small groups yet. It was still kind of the just the same like breakdown as it is now. Like we'd have like the worship and we'd have like a game and then we'd have a sermon and then that was pretty much it. And so that one was pretty easy. Like I just had to basically just, like you said, chaperone.
Yeah, I just watched the kids for a while.
And then it got better once I started kind of like connecting with the kids a little more. Because at first it was just kind of like, all right, I'm showing up, I'm helping as I'm needed. And, and then that's it. And then it really started having that more meaningful impact for me personally when I actually like started to get to know the kids and started to like get to like interact with them and just
and hearing their stories, like hearing a 12-year-old like little boy or little girl being like, yeah, no, I wanted to come, like I asked my parents to bring me here, and they sit and listen and you're like, dang, like these 12-year-olds are chasing after the heart of God. Like these kids who from, I think, 6th grade to 12th grade, all the way from 12 to 18, they're out here just chasing after the heart of God, which is just so cool to be a part of. And I know I've been part of the youth team here and there, like within over the last 14 years of church. I actually don't know how long we've been in church. 13 or 14 years? I think January is 14.
Yeah, January will be 14.
Yeah. So here and there, I mean, I was a youth leader when I was a youth.
Yeah.
So
when I first joined youth,
crazy.
You were in youth.
Yes, we were on the team together. And I think that was when like we really became friends, was on the youth leadership team together, which is another cool thing is like you go there to like help the youth be impacted, but then you're also then serving alongside more people with the right mindset of you, because it's like, okay, not only are we agreeing to be here Sundays and we're greeting together, but now we're here on Wednesday nights and we're serving together. And then if they attend young adults, you're like, and then we see each other on Thursday nights and we attend church together, young adult small group, and eventually serve together young adults. And that's what people are like, I don't know how to make friends in the church. It's like, well, we end up seeing each other 3 or 4 times a week when we volunteer for all of these different things.
I was seeing y'all just as much as I do now that I work here when I was just serving. Yeah. Just because I was here at least 3 times out of the week.
Yeah, if you just like sign up for all of these teams, it sounds exhausting because you're like, oh, it's Sundays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Like that's my whole week. But you realize if you like go on vacation or you're sick for a week or something like that and you miss, you're like, man, I miss those connections. Like,
Yeah.
it's way more life-giving than it is exhausting.
Yes.
And you know, there are some weeks where you find yourself tired and you're like, man, I'm here every day.
Mm-hmm.
But when you take a step back and you're like, I'm here like helping people in their church home and like with their relationship with God.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, like that is just so cool. And I get to make friends doing it. Like, and I feel better because I'm doing these great things and God is moving in my life, you know? It's just so crazy cool. Did you get your first like opportunity to speak and like preach in a youth setting, or was it a Sunday morning setting?
No, it was actually a Sunday morning setting.
So like young communicators.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember.
So talk a little bit about that, like your first time to really be able to like share the word from the stage, because a lot of people don't know that sometimes we get those opportunities and it's not even from a place of like, you know, being special or chosen. You know, that's not at all what it is, or being like super good at it, because most of our young communicators who get up there, and now we call it YA Sunday, have never spoken before.
Yeah. So I had never spoken before, and other than like taking like a speech class, I had never, like, that was the most I had like done any kind of public speaking. And even then it's like in a little classroom. And so this was in front of a whole...
Were you in the school of ministry at the time? Or was this when we were not having it at the time?
Okay, I take that back. Now that you reminded me, I did do the school of ministry, and I did do like a little like...
Because you do an assignment in there where you preach, but like that's, you know, a grade kind of thing. And so that really prepares. And I don't think a lot of people know that a lot of the people who get opportunity to speak are because they sign up to learn about how to speak and how to preach.
And so when I did have to do the assignment preaching, just to kind of like see if like you understand like how to build a sermon and everything. And even then it was like kind of like a speech class, because it was only like maybe 10 people. And so it wasn't that big. And so this one was like my first time, like this counted because it was in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Like not even just the whole congregation that was here, but online as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, but yeah, I remember that. It was in 2019.
2019. So you've been coming a few years?
A year.
At this point? 1 year.
It had been a year because I started, all
right. So sorry about the technical difficulties.
We're back.
We're back. We can continue.
Commercial break.
So continue telling us about that first opportunity that you got to speak.
So it was in 2019, and like I said, I've been coming about a year and a half at this point. It was in the summer of 2019. And I remember we had just gone to kids camp, and my first kids camp to like go and help out with. And we were in we had like a little like worship session for our teenage interns. And so it was just kind of like just a night for them just to kind of like receive something as well. Like they work hard the whole camp, so they needed something. And so I remember we were just sitting there worshiping, and I remember just feeling this tug that I was like, I feel like I'm going to be a part of like ministry somehow. And so I remember just feeling that tug, and I was just like, Lord, like, if this is you, just please just like give me some kind of sign that I know this is you and not just me thinking. And so that ends, and we go to bed, and we get out the next day, and me and Weston were driving around in a golf cart, just like delivering waters to everybody that was out in the heat and everything. And we were driving and on this like dirt road, and Pastor Brandon and Pastor Krista are on another golf cart, and they're driving towards us, and they like stop. And as they're stopping and we're driving by, Pastor Brandon's like pointing at me, and we like back up, and I thought he was pointing at Weston at first. And he's like, no, I'm pointing at you. And he was like, he told me, he was like, we're going to have, at the time it was still Young Communicators. It was the second one. And he was like, we're going to be having Young Communicators on July 4th, I think, 3rd or 4th, something like that. And he was like, would you want to preach? And first of all, like the first thing I thought of was like, oh my gosh, I just literally asked for a sign, and this is a sign. And I was scared.
Stomach dropped.
Yeah, and I was
instantly.
And the one thing that was going in my mind, or two things that were going in my mind, was that one was I literally had just asked for a sign. And I'm gonna assume this is it. And then two, when I had like I said, I had been in the school of ministry, and one thing that Pastor Brandon taught was something that his pastor John Haller, had said was to never turn down crap, my mind just went blank. Never turn down an opportunity. That's the word I've been looking for. An opportunity to preach.
Yeah.
And so those two things were going in my mind, and I was like, "Oh, all right, I guess I gotta do this now." And so that was the first time that I had preached, and I had this was in early June. The Young Communicators was in early July, and so I spent the entire month just preparing for it. Like, I found my scripture. I found
So you preached a different message than you had done in the school of ministry.
It was a totally different message. And so I found the scripture that I wanted to preach, and it was, my mind just went blank. It was out of 1 Samuel. That people judge the heart, but the Lord looks with or people judge the outside, but
the Lord looks at the heart.
Lord looks at the heart, yeah. And so I think it's 1 Samuel 16 verse 7, and I found out the story that I wanted to, the illustration, and just where all I wanted to go. I molded the story, and I basically wrote it out like an essay, and then for the next rest of the time, I memorized that entire. It was like a script. I memorized it. I did not want to stutter any words or anything. I just memorized the entire thing. And then that Sunday came, and I preached it. Nervous.
But it was good. It was really great. I love that Pastor Brandon has such a heart for giving opportunity to young communicators. And just even, which is why we don't call it now we call it YA Sunday, because our young adult ministry has grown so much, and we have so many people in there. But we don't call it up and coming preachers, or we don't call it, oh, these are going to be our next gen pastors. Yeah. Because everyone in their life at some point will be given an opportunity to communicate the word of God. And it doesn't mean necessarily from the stage. It could be at any point in a break room, or in a family reunion, or at a dinner, in any situation. And this is just a way to show people if everyone can do this, it's it doesn't take a special breed of people.
Yeah. And I also think it just helps, as well as also, I think sometimes and even maybe before I came, I had this mindset of you have to either be a certain age, or you have to have a specific title. Yeah. In order to,
holiness comes after working hard for holiness.
Yes. And so you have to check off these things in order to hold a mic and preach the gospel, and that's not it at all. No. Doesn't matter your age, doesn't matter your title.
Absolutely.
Anybody can preach the gospel.
We've had high schoolers preach during the YA Sundays. I know. I think Carson and Zach.
Yeah.
Were high schoolers when they were on.
We just had a high schooler preach on youth on Wednesday.
Preach, on Wednesday, and she did a great job.
She did.
She did a great job. Kyber brought a message on just a devotional kind of short little message, which was great. Which is what, if people don't know what YA Sunday, previously Young Communicator Weekend, is, 5-minute sermons brought by different young communicators, and
usually five different ones in each sermon.
Sometimes we do
series.
10
service.
And so each service will be 5 different people, but the last few times we've done just 5, and they preach both services, which has been great. It's just so cool to be able to have that kind of opportunity, and to have a pastor who's just trusts so much. Most pastors, at least that I've known and experienced, would hardly ever give their stage to people, even on their staff, on pastoral staff, let alone kids. Yeah. Just young people. This guy who's been coming to the church for a year. Yeah. Who's just been here and been serving and been showing up. I just love that about Pastor Brandon and about this church, and the opportunities and the elders, that they just trust all of us so much. Yeah. And just people who attend the church. If you're diving in and you're pursuing God, we're the same. Yeah. Because that's all he's doing too. He's diving in, he's pursuing God, he's in tune with the Holy Spirit and listens to what God tells him to do. He's not some holier than thou preacher who's earned some sort of title.
Yeah.
Same with Pastor Keenan. Same with Pastor Mauricio. All they do is wake up, they choose to pursue God, and they choose to listen to the Holy Spirit. And that's what each of us do in the congregation, in the audience, every single week.
Yeah.
Which is just so cool. So then after that, you had gotten some opportunities to speak at youth. You've had some opportunities to go off and speak at like some different conferences and youth events, I believe, which is really cool. And that just goes to show of like just pursuing God is what brings those opportunities. And like being here and serving and working alongside Pastor Keenan has given you opportunity to listen and learn from him and to have him speak into your message and how you write it out. I think he went with you to one of your events one time.
Did. All the way to
and
Dallas.
You've been with him on some of his events and stuff, which is just really great because, you know, people don't always fully understand that that's just friends. It's just friendship, you know, and it's honor and respect both ways.
Yeah.
So not only do we honor and respect our pastors, but they honor and respect us.
Yes.
And that's why they trust us with these opportunities to speak. Because like speaking at youth is not a light situation.
No.
Those are young moldable minds.
Yeah.
And that's trust.
Yeah.
Same with speaking into our kids. Same with speaking in the nursery. Every opportunity that we have is 100% trust, and that you're diving in and listening to the things that God has to say to you, which is so cool. And then, so you started serving on our young adults leadership team, and you were there for a couple of years. And then within the last couple of years, you've had to really step up kind of randomly after you were on staff and take over the tech team, which is not necessarily something that you had in mind, but you're definitely just like, you know, whatever you need from me, God, like wherever I'm needed, like I'll be there. Which is another thing in like how you had come about to working here is I don't think most people know that you came on just a couple hours a week helping build stuff during our renovations.
Yeah.
Was it during COVID? Like right after?
Yeah, it was
during
like
around that time
in the summer of 2020 during like right in
when
the
we were
heat
like
of COVID.
Remodeling everything, and there was like barely any of us here.
Yeah.
And you came on and you were helping build stuff just kind of like on a project to project basis. And then when you came on staff part-time, it was janitorial.
Yeah. I was only working 2 hours a day.
Yeah, 2 hours a day cleaning the toilets and the floors. And that is like, I mean, that's how Pastor Brandon started, you know? It's just like sitting in, talking to his pastors, and then cleaning the toilets, you know? And that's just so cool that that's been given you opportunity to have moments with Pastor Brandon, with Pastor Keenan, to be able to listen and learn from them, you know? And so kind of talk about maybe this journey from, and you still do janitorial, like that's still a big part of your job, but now you're here full time at the church, and a big, huge part of that is tech and moving into like creative departments and all of these kinds of things. And so kind of just talk about a little bit about that journey from working in the projects here and there to being here full time and having this space.
So I think, so before I was even like officially like I'm the janitor, and even before like I was working here like project to project, every once in a while when Pastor Keenan was doing the janitorial work before he was full pastoral.
Yeah, he was the janitor before you.
Anytime like he'd be out like, you know, preaching or just out for some reason, he'd ask me to come in and kind of handle some of the janitorial stuff.
You're good. I was just making sure it's going.
And I remember one day, it was like a Saturday after, like Saturday evening or something. I was outside and I was cleaning windows, and this guy in our church, Nathan Bosworth, who actually was doing the tech at the time, he walked up and he saw I was cleaning the windows, and he, you know, honestly just started preaching to me right then, just saying how like even just the cleaning of the windows, that's ministry. Like you're getting the place ready for people to come in. Absolutely. And so from then on, it just gave me this like this mindset of like everything I'm doing within this place is ministry. Yeah, 100%. Like it's whether it's, you know, scrubbing a toilet or cleaning windows, or, you know, now putting up the make sure like the graphics are ready to go in what order they need to be going in, and make sure all the words for the songs are in the in the right order, like all of that is ministry. And it's not just the preaching or the worship that is the ministry. Like, we can sing and we can like preach without a mic. We have to get yelling. Yeah. But it takes all of that in order for, for it to actually run as smoothly as it can. And then also like the cleanliness of the building makes people feel comfortable and feel at home. And so all of that is ministry. And so just from that point on, just going with that mindset of like all of this is valuable. Absolutely. Made me just appreciate everything that I'm doing. And so now that that I'm doing the tech stuff, again, just really like makes me appreciate and just like know what I'm doing is part of the ministry. And so, and then stepping into that role specifically now that like I'm kind of more of like in a more leadership position, and just making sure like everybody who is volunteering in the tech team, like they're taken care of, like they have everything that they need, like everything's set up for them to do what they need to, so they can come in and just do what they need to. And so, and just making sure like they're just taken care of during the time that they're up there and everything. And so it's all of that has just led me to like just understand more about what like ministry is. Yeah, it's so much more than the concept of ministry being a pastor and speaking, because even being a pastor is more than just speaking. It's being there for people in their, in the moments of their lives whenever they need you most, in the high moments and in the low moments, and speaking on Sundays. But there are some pastors who are just like never get the opportunity to speak, or never even want opportunity to speak. They're just there for people, to pastor them through, to give them advice, to pray for them, to be with them in those times, which is really cool. And all of this that we do here, like you said, is ministry. Even this online communications thing is a way to minister, to show people like this is what eventually you could have. Like if you're praying for good, healthy, godly friendships, he's going to bring them. Yeah. You do your part. You volunteer for things. You join a small group. And if there's someone there and you just start talking to them, you never know. Like you're going to be best friends in a couple of years. Maybe not. Maybe you will. But God will bring those people in your life. So if you're looking for a job and you're like, man, I hate where I'm at. It's unhealthy here. God will bring you opportunity. Maybe it's through a church. Maybe it's through being a minister to the workplace. Maybe you just have a really great Christian boss who believes in you, who trusts you, but you're an accountant or you're a salesman. You could be anything, and God can bring those opportunities to you. Yours just happened to be right here at Celebration Church, which is just so cool. And so I really want this to be like an example to people of just listening to God's voice and trusting in him to like lead you where you're supposed to be. Because it's really crazy. Like you would have never thought, how many years ago? Almost 5 years ago. January will be 5 years for you. And within 5 years, God's brought you from like hardly ever, if never, going to church and not knowing what it was about, to being full-time on staff at a church that loves you, that believes in you, that trusts you. And that's just like so cool. And you've made family here. And your mom comes here, and you and your mom get to worship together and serve together, because your mom's on the serve team, the dream team. Your mom is a huge part of giving back. Every event we have, that your mom is there serving. Whether she'll just sit there and fill up like 100 pitchers of water, like if it's for an event, she will literally she'll go and about, and she'll be sweating, and she'll be tearing tables up and putting tables down, and she's a servant. And that's just so cool to see that maybe I'm not trying to say that you had a problem with your family or your mom, but like if that is something that you want, you're praying like, I really want to have my family in church, be the one that takes the step, take the step, and then your family's going to see the change in you, and they're going to want to be there. They're going to want to hear that, because God will move through you whether or not you open your mouth. Because your actions will change. I know yours did, like a lot. Just the things that you were choosing to do. I mean, you had to break a lease in an apartment because you felt like the Lord was pulling you away from certain friendships and pulling you away from certain situations.
and move back in with your mom as a 21-year-old boy,
Yep.
which is like, no one wants to do that at 21. Like, leave all their friends, but you're like, no, like God's calling me out of this.
Yeah.
And I just have to trust that it'll work out.
Yeah.
And it has.
Yeah. I think that just like really just speaks on like having faith in him.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes he'll speak and it doesn't make sense to you, or it just doesn't, it may not make sense to other people. But knowing that it's him that's speaking, even if you don't understand it, he's always got a reason as to why. And so just trusting him and just going wherever he's leading you can lead you to places you never even expected to go.
Absolutely. And we're just getting started. Just barely got on full time.
Yep.
But it's exciting.
2 months now.
2 months.
2 months.
Hey-o.
2 months.
That's all we have today with Kade Hinojosa. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kade, and sharing your life story with us. If you're listening or watching, we hope to see you at Celebration Church on Sundays, 9:30 and 11, or Wednesday night small groups is on our website, celebrationchurchlive.com, and Wednesday night youth, have your kids there at 7:15, 7, and young adults at 7:30 on Thursdays.
Let's go.
That's all we've got for you, and we're off.
Catch you later.